Hey, this is Seagrove, and today I'm here with Philip Schulz and Gustavo Wada. Why don't you guys introduce yourself? Philip, why don't you go first and just tell like your sponsors, how long you've been in the game, such like that.
Sure. Hi, I'm Philip Schulz. I've been playing Pokemon for about 10 years, something like that, more or less actively, and I'm currently a player of Limitless TCG. So you might know our website or Facebook. If not, go check it out. I can really recommend it, of course. Yeah, and I'm glad to be here.
Okay. And Gustavo?
Hi guys, I'm Gustavo Wada from Brazil. I play Pokemon for like 10 years, almost that. And I think that's
Okay.
the pressure to be here.
So first question, we've seen the EUIC, we saw Torch deck do super well, and then we saw Memphis, which is the biggest regional ever. We had a few other decks pop up, like Zoroark Lycanroc, which ended up winning. Buzzwole Lycanroc did really well. Galissapod did well in both forms. Is the meta settled now? Do you feel like we sort of know what the best decks are? Or are you expecting at Leipzig and Sao Paulo? Are you all expecting new decks to pop up or older decks to make a comeback? What do you guys think? Gustavo, why don't you start?
Don't know. I think the meta is kind of we know the best decks in format, but the meta changes from in each region.
Yeah.
Like in Sao Paulo, we see a lot of Vulcanions, Gardevois, Vicabulus decks that were not so popular in Memphis or London.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Philip, what do you think?
Yeah, well, of course, Zoroark decks are extremely popular and very strong, and I mean, it's understandable that the card is so dominant just with the consistency and with like the versatility.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that nothing will change about the best decks. It's like preference to prefer Zoroark Lycanroc over Zoroark Galissapod. I think Buzzrock is very strong as well up there, but there are also other decks that can exploit it. For example, we've seen Azul with this Galissapod Garbodor. So I mean, other Garbodor decks can kind of replicate that success by exploiting Zoroark's ability reliance, but they are not that strong. So they are kind of just hoping to counter the meta.
Okay.
And then we of course like other decks like Sylveon Mill that try to exploit Zoroark's weakness to that. So I think we can see some surprises. I mean, Sylveon is really strong. It can be easily Dongfo. And yeah, but I think about the main things in the meta it won't change. Zoroark's just too strong to give up that tier 1 position.
Yeah. So Philip, in Europe, we have decks that, I mean, every region has decks that they prefer more. What, I guess Zerny's Break is sort of the famous one from Europe that keeps coming back. Are there any other decks that you'd expect to see there that maybe we didn't see in Memphis?
Let me think about this. I'm not sure. Like, we have some Europeans that like to stick to weird decks, like Joe from Omnipop. He will probably not play meta, just some meme deck, like he always does. So maybe even his Xerneas Break deck, I think it's okay-ish right now. I don't know. Can't think of any specific deck. I think Galissapod Zoroark is extremely popular in Europe. Feels like every second person plays it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's mainly what I'm expecting from European players.
Okay, and Gustavo, do you have any decks that you expect to see that maybe people coming down for the regional from somewhere else in Latin America or United States might not expect based on Memphis?
In the last tournaments in Brazil, decks like Garbodor and Gardevoir were extremely popular. Zoroark is not a deck that Brazilians like too much. So for São Paulo regionals, I really expect a lot of Vulcanions and Vicabulu.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned earlier that there's a lot of Garbodor in Brazil. Do you think
Yeah.
that has to do with why people sort of shy away from Zorak?
I don't know why people like too much garbage. Maybe don't have Zorak or don't know how to play with.
Okay.
There is a possibility, or just like the deck, like Aspion, 30 and Confuse. Try to stall your opponent. Don't know.
Okay. Well, tell me. I'm going to list a few decks and then give you guys each chance to speak your mind on them. I'm going to start with Zorak Lycanroc, which won Memphis. Do you think it is the best deck in format? Do you think it was just the best deck for that tournament? Gustavo, why don't you start?
I really like Zorak Lycanroc, but it's really strong. Every time in turn 2, you can knock out specific Pokemons. With Lycanroc, you just like Guzma them with Lycanroc and knock out with Zorak.
Yeah.
You can have the Lycanroc GX that can almost knock out everything in format. It also hitting the Zorak weakness.
Yeah.
So this is a really strong deck, but I prefer other versions from Zorak, like Zorak Golisopod.
Okay. And we'll come to that in a minute. Philip, what are your thoughts on Zorak Lycanroc?
Yeah, I agree with Gustavo. I prefer Golisopod as well because I think it's a much smoother deck. Like the Lycanroc has many issues. I think I don't like that it has low counts on many cards, but what mostly is the problem are the energy attachments, because Lycanroc needs 2 energy, which is of course super annoying. Especially with a low energy count like 8 or 9 energy, so you need to draw 2 out of them, and then one has to be a fighting energy, and of course very often your opponent will have enhanced hammers, and so that's just really annoying. And yeah, then of course you always have those weird combinations with Kukuis and stuff like that that you need to draw into, and I think that Zorak Golisopod just runs way smoother than it, and it's like more reliable of a deck. It might have not better matchups, but I think overall it just runs better, so it would be my go-to choice of Zorak.
Okay. And between Golisopod Zorak and Golisopod Garbodor, which do you prefer?
Golisopod Zorak, for sure.
Oh.
It's more consistent.
Yeah. And Philip, do you agree?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was so confused of your question because I understood Zorak Garbodor.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense this way. Yeah, Golisopod Garbodor is okay, but it feels very clunky, so I'm not a big fan of the deck.
Okay. And how widely played do you expect Golisopod to be, Philip, in Leipzig?
Yeah, I expect to see a lot of Golisopod Zorak. We also have great Golisopod Zorak players in Leipzig, like Tord and Benji, my brother, of course. And yeah, many others that aren't that well known, but have piloted the deck for a while pretty well. So those, of course, but then of course there are also a lot of people who just net deck it and play it right away, or maybe just give it a try. And yeah, Golisopod Garbodor might as well pop up. We have, for example, Mark Lutz, who has seen a lot of success with it, and he really likes the deck. So lately he told me that he's not a big fan anymore, but yeah, there are also other players that might try it, and I think it will be very successful.
Okay. Gustavo, you mentioned Vikabulu being big in your area. It can hit 210 really easily against Zorarks. It has weakness against Lycanroc. It seems pretty good if it runs. How big do you think Vikabulu will be, and do you think it's a good play for Sao Paulo?
I think Vikabulu will be the most played deck in Sao Paulo.
Oh, wow.
Because people really like this deck. This is a strong deck. You can hit constantly 210 every turn, but there is some problem. Like if you don't do Vikavolt on turn 2.
Yeah.
or he kill your groupings. The deck has a lot of problems, but when you set up, it's pretty hard to deal with the power of the Tapu Bulu.
Yeah. Philip, what are your thoughts on Buzzwole Lycanroc? Does it have a place right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a very strong deck. It can overpower your opponent easily, and it has quite good against Zorak variants because, of course, Zorak is weak to them. And so if you use like Zygarde and pressure Golisopod Zorak very early and try to take out Coco and stuff like that, so he can't just get the response with Golisopod when you are good, then you probably just steamroll him. And against Zorak Lycanroc, you have an even easier matchup because he doesn't have a grass Pokemon, so he doesn't have a great response to your Zygarde and your Lycanroc. But then again, it's not a Zorak deck, and you have Max Elixir in it, and yeah, that's the reason Max Elixir isn't that popular anymore like it used to be, and it's really annoying to play with the card and feels like a lot of RNG.
Yeah.
And so I think that Buzzwole Lycanroc is definitely very strong, but it has way more RNG and variants than other decks. So than Zorak variants.
Okay.
So it's tier 1 in my opinion, but I personally wouldn't like to play it.
Okay. Gustavo, in Guardy has been on the decline. It didn't do as well as expected in EUIC, and it did even worse in Memphis. Do you think it's not a good play, or do you think it's still a top tier deck?
I think there will be players playing Gardevoir, but I don't like this deck. It's pretty inconsistent, and it's had a lot of problems. Like you can kill a lot of Kirlias in the early game. Houts, if you have a lot of dead draws like max potions in the early game. So Gardevoir is it can be really good. Like in turn 2 you can have 2 Gardevoirs, a Kirlia, and a lot of energy, max potions, and okay. But it can be really bad. Like you keep losing Kirlia's Houts and not able to knock out or start the game with your setup.
Yeah. Philip, do you agree about Guardy? Do you think you mentioned Buzzwole being tier 1, and Buzzwole seems to have a pretty good Guardy match. What do you think about Guardy now?
Yeah, like a Guardy that runs hard can of course beat anything, and it's still a very strong deck. I mean, the card itself is very overpowered, but like your reliance on rare candy is so annoying. Like you have a 4th in your deck and you have to draw it in combination with certain other cards to just get into the game. And so I would always try to avoid playing stage 2s, and I really don't like them. And I mean, I've played Guardy at the League Cup, for example, just to have it played it once, and then I got just donked in the final round, which was deciding. And yeah, sometimes that happens with stage 2s because you have a small basic and you need so much stuff. Yeah, so I think Guardy is still very strong, but yeah, just like with Buzzrock, I think there are better options. So I'd not play it.
Okay. 2 more questions. Philip, if you're going into Leipzig, what deck do you need to be prepared to beat?
I definitely have to beat Golisopod Zorak, because this is like the deck that most good players play. And if I'm going to play Leipzig, and everyone that's going to play Leipzig needs to know that people like Benji, Tort, and Robin are expected to do very good, and at some point you will have to beat them.
Yeah.
So you should definitely make sure that you're comfortable with that matchup.
Okay. Gustavo, same question for Sao Paulo. What's the one deck that you have to be able to beat going into Sao Paulo?
I think Vikabolo. This is the deck that most appeared in our League Cups, and everyone liked this deck. For me, that's the deck that you have to beat in Sao Paulo.
Okay.
If you can win Vicabulu, you will. I'm expecting to play against like in, I don't know, maybe 90 rounds, 3 Vicabulus at least.
Okay. And last question, Gustavo, we'll start with you. Your friend comes to you and says the day before and says, "I don't know what to play. Just give me a deck. What should I play?" What do you tell him?
Zoro or Golizopod, for sure.
Okay.
This deck, you can like put a lot of things for a lot of matches in this deck. Like Parallel City, it had a good match against almost everything in format,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a pretty consistent deck. For me, one of the best decks in format, for sure.
Okay. And Philip, same question. The day before, your friend says, "Hey, Philip, what do I do?" What are you telling?
Yeah, it's tricky because it depends on how well the person is prepared. So if he tested a lot and he still doesn't feel like playing Gold Support Zorak, then I'd probably recommend Lycanroc Zorak, just because it has a little more variance. So if you run hot, you will mostly win, and so you can just go for that. If he's unprepared, then I wouldn't recommend Zorak, just maybe Guardi or Basrock, something that's not that. I mean, of course, most decks are pretty tough to play, but if you're not very well prepared, I wouldn't want to trade 3 times a turn and decide which cards you will need in the late game and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay.
Either Zorak, Lycanroc, or like Guardi, Basrock, something like that. Or maybe even Vika or Tapu Bulu if he's not prepared at all.
Okay. Philip, we thank you guys for your time, but Philip, I want to ask you, is there any last advice you want to give or any shout outs you want to give?
Shout out to Team Limitless, of course. Last advice. Well, I wouldn't focus too much on only Zorak if you're going into Leipzig, because you will have to beat other decks as well. So don't play something like Sylveon Mill that just beats them. Be ready to face other decks as well. That's really important.
Okay. And Gustavo, any last advice or any shout outs you want to give?
Same advice, like don't be prepared only for one deck, because you can, in Brazil there is a lot of decks that you can play with. Like there will be Golit Pozorg, there will be Vicabulu, Volcanion, Gardevoir, so be prepared for more than only one deck.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for your time, and good luck everybody going to Leipzig or Sao Paulo.
Thanks.
Thanks.